Alright guys, this is Krosky commentating the TwelveTeen versus International Master penguingIM. Andrew Tang, if I'm not mistaken. And this is in the Crazyhouse World Championship. This is the round of 16, I believe, one of the earlier matches of this round. And it promises to be a great one. These two are not quite evenly matched. penguingIM surprisingly has a better record against TwelveTeen. But when I went back and checked out some of their match history, it seems that most of those have come in a 30-second time control back during the bit chess tournaments. And 3-0 is a different animal entirely. Blitz, of course, is drastically different from bullet. And you know what? I gave the edge to TwelveTeen in my predictions, so we'll see how that stands up. Anyway, let's jump into the actual position here. Started with this kind of Catalan D-pawn type structure, which I started out playing myself actually. The queen is actually nicely placed on e1, keeping an eye on all these dark squares, because there's a motif of sacks on g3 and stuff you want to watch out for. Seems like a pretty balanced position. White has adopted a somewhat stable, safer, more conservative structure. As a matter of fact, I've seen TwelveTeen play this a little bit more often than usual in Jan Lee's videos when he's had his intensive training and such against him. TwelveTeen's been playing this a lot when he used to play different stuff. He used to play this orangutans, this crazy type stuff, which he still does employ as black. But he's been playing D-pawn as white for some time now. Just making sure everything's up and running. Because this match it was supposed to start at 8 o'clock Eastern, that is, and they wanted to get a head start here. Okay, so TwelveTeen has nabbed a pawn and a minor piece, that is, for the rook. Which leaves this a little bit tender, the first rank, but honestly, I think that was a wise decision from TwelveTeen. You'll be able to put that extra pawn to good use on the king side, I imagine. He scooped up another pawn on d5. Yeah, so black's center is somewhat collapsing. But black is very active as well. Trying to get my bearings here still. So what are ideas for black? He has to keep an eye on this f7 spot, but he also wants to maybe pressurize this g3 spot with a knight drop maybe, or he's got to get some activity of his own. Queen f6. That's a bit mysterious. What's the idea here? I wonder. Look at this time difference too. 2 minutes to 40 seconds. White getting rid of black's best piece. Well, the only piece that was active in white's territory anyway. Yeah, I like it. White's doing very well here. I think he's going to get a lot of tempo on the queen, be able to place a lot of pieces on the king side with tempo. I can't see black surviving this with 25 seconds on the clock. He can take on f7 whenever he wants. Ooh, that's a nice move. Distracting this pawn from f7. So you can place here, and if takes, then yeah, it's too much. Light squares are too weak. Nicely played from TwelveTeen, so it's 1-0. 1-0. My sound isn't working here. That's a little bit strange. I'm not logged in. Okay, that's why. Okay. What is this a4 push? Well, that's unique. Maybe Penguin just trying to get TwelveTeen into a more unique position, but tell you what, TwelveTeen thrives in unique positions and complicated positions with lots of open lines, so I think black's got all he wanted out of this opening. He's laughing here, I think. Pawn drop here is possible, maybe just castle. And just castles. So for those of you who don't know, this is a best of 10, and how that works is it's best of 10 games, I mean, in a single match. So the victor of this match will have to be the first to 6 by 2 points. First to 6 by 2. So if they're tied up at 5-5, they just keep playing back to back to back until somebody wins 2 games in a row. Now TwelveTeen parting with a minor piece in exchange for getting the initiative, so he's allowing this to drop in order to take on g2. He won another knight in hand. That's wise. If takes, then you can save that bishop as well, so that's not possible for white to do. This pawn will drop, and g2 will drop as well. So yeah, I like black here as well. Queen trade is possible, but I don't think white wants to do that because, well, maybe it's possible. Yeah, because black doesn't have any knight drops that would drive the king over to take here with check. But white does have a knight drop. For example, a knight drop here, pawn takes, queen drop, mate. So we'll see whether or not black actually wants to go down this queen trade line. Maybe inadvisable. Okay. Knight on or takes. He's going to get that rook. But this looks... that's crucial. The rook drop with check, covering the knight drop, and now you can take the queen. Makes sense. However, white's king has managed to find some safety, some modicum of safety anyway. Black only has one knight in hand, otherwise you could drop here, takes, and then drop here with the queen drop. But the knight actually is on this square as well, so white has some cover. Black, contrary-wise, is weak on the dark squares. And penguingIM is going to take advantage of that. Queen drop, he's giving up the rook just to get a little bit more safe on these dark squares, but this bishop is guarding this square, so I like white's chances here. Yeah, pawn drop here, bishop drop here. I'm expecting one of those two options. Even a queen drop here is probably possible. Knight drop here is possible. But I think it's simple pawn at h6 is a good start. Am I missing some counter-attacking chances from black? If pawn here, knight here is no good, knight here is no good. Maybe knight here with a rook coming in, but it shouldn't be enough, right? Okay, so plays pawn at f6 to get this knight drop with tempo, I suppose. You can't take the knight, obviously, because mate hangs on g7. Queen is covering. Maybe just, yeah, pound those dark squares. Just drop a bishop here. Drop a rook here is possible. Whatever. No. White should be able to pull away with this, even though there's only 20 seconds. He's got to start motoring, but just take, right? What am I missing here? He seems to be proceeding awfully cautiously, given that I don't see really any counterattacking chances for black until now. Knight here, perhaps? Or he's going to sack? Either is possible. Knight here, up, pawn on, drag the king out, bishop on one of these squares. Bishop here. It shouldn't be enough. Okay. Brings the king to a dark square instead, because he's strong in the dark squares. He has all this covered on the dark squares. 7 seconds to finish it off. He's given black a little bit more play than he should have, I think. But black's resources are completely drying up with both his attacking and defending resources, so white should be able to find mate. But never give up on TwelveTeen. He's an awfully resourceful fellow, we know that. Oh, I thought just king here. Okay, now black has no more checks. White's going to come on with check. Ooh, I thought knight here was probably better. Maybe not. White's completely safe, of course, and with time on the clock, White would easily win this, but 3-6. He's got to get a, he's got to get a move on. There it is. Oh, wow. He finds mate with 0.3 seconds on the clock. Well done to penguingIM there. And the time scramble. Both of these guys are some of the fastest bullet players I've ever seen. Both in Crazyhouse and in normal chess. They're just amazing. On the board as well as on the clock, of course. So, penguingIM scrapes away with the win there as White. Well done to TwelveTeen for sticking in there so long. I thought it should have been over a little bit earlier, but... Alright, looks like we're going down the same line. Resize this board a little bit. Hopefully that's a little bit better. So the score is 1-1. Another fairly balanced position. Breaking in the center. So breaking in the center, getting rid of this very nicely placed d5 pawn comes at a very slight cost of weakening this f3 square in the long term. But it just covers this up with another bishop, another diagonal piece on that light square, and should be perfectly fine. Maybe add f5 to hit the bishop. No, knight in. That's probably a little bit more active solution. Bring this inactive piece into the action with tempo. So black's game will be coming in on the light squares here, and I don't yet see a huge weakness for white to hit, except maybe this d6 pawn. d6, g7, so maybe the dark squares. But I like black here. Just slightly. If I were white, my plans would be, first of all, make sure I'm solid on the light squares, which looks like he is now. And then bring a bishop on. This knight nicely covers that, but maybe a knight on here. Bishop on the dark square makes sense. Looking at this pawn, looking at this pawn. Always ideas of taking, looming in the air, taking on g5. So you probably don't want to take that, because then you allow this knight in, and that's always bad news in this fianchetto structure. So how do you maintaining the tension, I suppose, is okay, because takes, and you're okay. Maybe a pawn on here, after saving this bishop, of course. So for white, maybe he just wants to replace this kind of linchpin of his structure here. Well, he's going to progress in the center. He's going to move forward instead of backwards, as I was suggesting. That's a nice move. That's a nice move, forcing TwelveTeen to use his knight as a blocker. Yeah, black should be doing very well here. He has coverage here, and he doesn't really need to worry about that, I think. Proceeding on the dark squares is probably his best course of action here, rather than defending g7. He's going to get this rook with a check. He's going to drag the king out even further, maybe with the pawn drop, or what else? See, I was thinking back here, instead of dropping the pawn with check, his idea was takes and then dropping here with check, but you can just sidestep that. So in this position, I probably would have placed a pawn on g3 and just taken there, or something. But okay, what happened? Sacked another pawn here. Drag him out. He wants more diagonal pieces. This queen is very nicely centralized. He can probably safely take that takes. Ooh, no, maybe not, because after takes, and then the queen is going to mate, so it'll be a dangerous pawn to take. Takes, maybe. Oh, you probably want to take that back. Black elects to keep safe and take this pawn while it still can, rather than come in. But I don't know. I liked Black's initiative there, and it seems that that was a backwards move. But anyway, I would say Black is the only one who can really has chances to win this. Black's going to be doing everything he can to hammer this weak spot. But there's no easy way to get at it, really. It's not a move you like to play, but it seems like it'll work out, allowing this dark square control, just to make sure white has control only of one color complex rather than two, white and dark. Knight covers this square, preventing mate, of course. 19 seconds to 12 seconds. TwelveTeen has managed to turn it around amazingly, as he always does. I'm just going to stop predicting stuff, guys, because what do I know? Yeah. Mate here was... Oh no, knight covers that, but it's just going to be on the clock, actually. And take that. Yeah, Black's just got to throw in all the pre-moves he can. Take the queen next. Yep, take the queen with check, and he's going to get this game, guys. Nicely done. Well, yeah, there it is. Nicely done from penguingIM. He seemed to be in control for 3/4 of that game, and then TwelveTeen managed to turn it on a dime and get some initiative of his own for a short while, and then the pendulum swung back in Penguin's favor. So that's 2-1 Penguin. And TwelveTeen returns to his usual St. George setup, which I don't know how he gets away playing this stuff, guys. I try it from time to time, and I always get my rear end handed to me handily. I just don't understand it. And Stockfish gives these type of situations like +2 to white or whatever, but TwelveTeen manages to find activity, often by sacking a piece for 2 pawns in the center and opening up some lines. Especially for this kind of hidden bishop. So TwelveTeen is throwing Harry up the board and Harry the H-pawn and is progressing on the dark squares at the cost of a piece. I like this play, though. He seems pretty active and is making white uncomfortable, to say the least. Now this pawn is a little bit weak. Otherwise, I would say a bishop at H4 would be a good move, but yeah, this pawn hangs. So maybe bishop here doesn't look so good because white can progress in the center. Bishop here is reasonable. So maybe here to protect this pawn, open the queen up. Oops, that's not how the queen moves. Open the queen up. Or what else? Okay, he's going to bring his king to f8 to keep an eye on this pawn. Releasing some of the tension in the center. So what does he want to do with this pawn? He wants to drop it on H4. Okay. Okay. G6. Black remains very strong in the dark squares. See, this is the type of move that would never occur to me to play, but it makes sense. You know, seeing it played on the board, it makes sense. Because now white is a little bit safer on the light squares. This square in particular is no longer such a weakness. If you can imagine this pawn still back on G7, maybe a pawn at G6 and stuff, sacking on F7 were always options for white. Black remains strong in the dark squares. He has this battery looking at F6, in addition to the knight looking at F6 and this bishop here, and it's just a good way of solidifying the position, it looks like. In addition to snagging this piece, should black be so inclined. So what does white want to do here? You got to start making some progress, I feel. Drop in pawn here. You don't want to drop back because then you can save this knight. Takes here, the queen's going to take and pin you up. Okay, that's a nice move. What else comes into consideration? Taking and then taking with one of those two pieces. No, he's going to take here, really? Huh, I thought takes. And then he can't move the bishop because this... maybe bishop just here was better. So that's why he just elected to take on h6 instead. Okay. And now if you take here, then bishop here is going to be deadly. So, again, I was wrong. White's found a way to come in on the dark squares. After I was prattling on about how safe he was on the dark squares. Yeah, this is ugly. Very ugly. Saps the queen, though. Huh. Was that necessary? That was probably not necessary. He could have taken here and then started placing pawns on, but anyway, he did win a rook from this exchange. Got to be looking out for mate. Oh, it's not mate. You can run up. Okay. And this queen factory is going to be awfully dangerous. So the king runs. The king runs. Now, black would love to find a way to block this square off, but I don't see how he does it right now. White, and meanwhile, is blocking off black's escape route, and he doesn't have like a pawn or anything in hand that he can block that off with. He's allowing the trade of queens. Bishop must take to guard this square. Okay. It's just about what... Okay, so if takes, the idea is to draw the king down so we can promote with check. This queen drop always looks scary, but it seems that it doesn't amount to much right now. In fact, it would probably be a bad move, because then the queen is just hanging. So what does white want to do here? Okay, so he's just going to cover that up with a rook. Sidestepping or stepping up with the king to make sure the rook is looking at that square. Now black wants to remove this knight perhaps, taking here and then placing a pawn on, but the knight covers this square. So now here is a possibility, right? I think that's a very real possibility. I guess it doesn't amount to much either because the king steps back after a pawn drop. This knight's on the square still, but okay, queen coming on to f6 as a defensive in a defensive posture here. It was oh no, I was going to take here. I was going to say promote to a knight here under promote. It's going to come down to the clock again, guys. Can Penguin pull another time scramble out? Let's see. Black has achieved some safety. He's going to have to take twice on e5. No, huh? Yep, 93. Throw some checks on. Wow. Wow, Ping was just too quick for him. 3-1 Penguin. I don't even know what the heck I would have made of that final position, guys, in terms of over the board evaluation. I don't know, it was just crazy towards the end, time scramble. I'd be curious, though, to take a deeper look at it before it became a time scramble, just to see what was going on there. So, okay, we get e4, e5 positions. White going with the bishop e2 line instead of the bishop c4 line. And when that's the case, then black will try to break in the center, as black has done. And try to prove that this bishop on e2 is misplaced, or less actively placed at least. It's still obviously an entirely viable way of playing, but less actively placed than it would be here, which is why black is broken in the center. So, if queen takes, maybe pawn on here is the idea. Nope. He's going to place a knight on. So white will be trying to probably drop a pawn on these light squares. I would probably drop a pawn here now. You're giving up the knight, sure, but you get a pawn back forward and an exposed king. Instead, white elects to hold on to that knight and pressurize the dark squares. Okay. This pawn is hanging. Can that be taken? Maybe, maybe not. Black thinks not. So now you probably don't want to do that. Or do you? I was going to exchange knights. I was going to say putting something on f6 would make sense. Blocking this pen. And now white is progressing on the light squares, making use of this pen. Takes. King sidesteps, or does he want to take here twice? Sidesteps. Okay. This piece is hanging, so what do you do about that? You drop another piece on h6. Yeah, white looks pretty good here. White looks pretty good. Black may have enough defensive resources. That looks dangerous, to be sure. If takes, you can even take here. Takes, takes, pawn on, takes, takes, takes. Yeah. I'm not sure about this continuation. What do you do? He took the bishop. Okay. Okay. But this looks pretty deadly. Don't want to take there. Allows a queen in. He's trying desperately to get some activity. So removing this piece. So what if you replace this bishop on one of these squares? Yeah. Black is defending tenaciously, but it may not be enough. Yep, distracting this knight, and now you can pull the king out. Oops, with check. I'm terrible at drawing these arrows. Nice find, knight on the back rank. If that's taken, you can promote to either a knight or a queen. He decides to go for a queen. That's probably better, because it forces... well, it wins a queen, essentially. And yeah, that's definitely resignation worthy. So that one went to 12-teen. 12-teen fighting back. Is that 2-3? What did they start at? I think they started here, right? I hope so. So 2-3, we'll call it 2-3. 3 points to penguingIM and 2 to 12-teen. As far as I know, penguingIM, and I could be mistaken about this, but he's, to my knowledge, somewhat newer to the Crazyhouse scene. Maybe played on ICC before or something. But I don't think he was a long-time fix haunt or anything before lichess introduced it here on this site. And he just surged through the ranks, as far as I'm aware. Very, very strong Crazyhouse player. Top 10, I'd say. And 12-teen, of course, is I would say top 2. As a matter of fact, I would place 12-teen as a next best contender after Jan Lee in terms of Crazyhouse prowess. Crazyhouse and Bughouse. Okay. We're on the e4, and then 12-teen's gone for this pawn gambit line. The Firefly gambit, I've heard it called. Okay. Black's managed to discomfit. We'll say Black's managed to discomfiture White's kingside. And now you can just drop a pawn and win this rook by force. Looks very good for Black. The idea of this pawn gambit, this d5, e6 stuff, and allowing the capture on e6, is just to open up some lines. At the cost of a pawn, you open up some lines, make yourself very active, get some central presence, and you have a very free-flowing game if you can neutralize White's extra, material advantage. But 12-teen thrives in active positions, so this opening seems very well suited to him. Black's... Yeah. This cannot be good for White. Blocking out the queen's communication with f3, so a knight's going to come on here eventually. You're actually winning the queen straight out. Okay, so another game to 12-teen is 3-3. 3-3 if I'm not mistaken, 3-3. Back to e4, e5. Let's see if we go for this bishop e2 line again, or bishop e... Okay, we're going back to e2. Yeah, 12-teen playing rather conservatively with this bishop e2 and then knight a4 line, just controlling everything, trying to exchange the c3 knight for this better c5 bishop, but it does take a few moves. c3, of course, looking at making sure a piece doesn't end up landing on this d4 square. So it looks like we're in for a more positional game this time, guys. What does black want to do? Castling isn't necessary here. That feels like it's perfectly fine, of course, but it feels like a lazy move. Just kind of a rote move rather than finding a more constructive way of playing. Because white has no pressure on black right now on the center or on the king side. So castling isn't necessary. Maybe instead he wants to maybe place a knight in on white's territory, but then that can just be taken. Or maybe you want to do something about this pen. Maybe penguin's even considering a pawn push and bring the rook to the file. That's a possible way of playing. Dangerous, of course, in Crazyhouse, as in chess, but possible. Because the king can always run to the queen side. Maybe he just wants to lift the queen, get out this pen, and castle queen side. It's possible as well. So penguin here is weighing his options. He's going to bring the rook to the file. Okay, so broadcasting his intentions to play g5. It's a very interesting way of playing. I don't dislike it. I don't dislike it. So now you've opened up this file. This is a threat. You don't have a pawn drop on h3 just yet. So, interesting position we have here. Bishop h5. Okay. I'm not entirely sure about this. Because this, I mean, white's already defended from the potential pen here. But maybe he just wanted to put something on the light squares, which makes sense. So now he's blocking this off. Black is debating whether to take here twice. And he's going to take the knight and then take here with the queen. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so he's figuring out whether or not he could take here safely after the queen exchange. White declined the queen exchange and has now blocked off the g-file. Okay, so black's plan here must be to drop in on h3, but white seems okay. White seems okay because he has this nice bishop and has blocked this powerful battery off. Okay, knight here, just rerouting the knight and getting out of d5 forks. I like white's position now. He's going to exchange for the rook and now come in the dark squares. He's going to look for another diagonal to place on one of these squares. King's going to have to run, rook drop, picks this up, too weak on the back. Actually, that's going to be very close to mate, yeah. Alright, so that game goes to 12-teen. 12-teen with a comeback here. 4-3 from what? It was 1-3, I believe, yeah. So 4-3 from 1-3. 12-teen surging back into the lead with possibly just 2 games to go. Remember, it's first to 6 by 2, best of 10. We're going to get this gambit line again. It is declined, so he recaptures on d5, and now you've got just like a French exchange type structure. Which I never feel should give black terribly, very, very many problems. The French exchange structure. Because you've liberated this bishop, and black is at no material disadvantage. Yeah, this is nice. You can't take that because of the knight drop. It's going to sack here. King takes knight on, something like that. Knight e4, okay. And now you can drop a pawn here, and if the rook moves in, then you take here, so you're getting some material back. Pawn here seems reasonable. Any other options? Queen e7, perhaps? Yeah, that looks pretty good. Queen e7 first. And you can always play this whenever you want to at f2. King can't. This knight is such a powerful piece. Look at that beastly knight covering both of these escape squares for the king. And he's also thwarted by his own bishop here, blocking off this escape route, even though that's still in the file too. So black here is completely dominating the position. So white attempts to block off this file. That's immediately taken off the board. Recaptures with a knight, puts a bishop on so he can take this rook when he wants to. Ooh, pawn on. Ooh, he's got this knight covering. So take here, but then he allows the king to run. So TwelveTeen is calculating whether or not taking here is going to be mate. And my guess is it is. But then he doesn't have to. He can just like play h5 and threaten this, stuff like that. Or h5 and threaten the pawn drop, rather. He can even just take this rook. He has so many options, which are all equally dangerous. So TwelveTeen must have calculated that this knight, that the queen sacrifice for the knight is enough to mate, and I believe him. So if pawn takes, pawn here is going to mate. The king is nicely cut off by this complex of pieces around him. If bishop takes, pawn on, king up. Where do you want to drop this knight? Maybe you push. Yeah, that's going to be mate, right? We're close to it. I'm expecting a resignation here, actually. Yeah, penguingIM resigns after considering his options. So now TwelveTeen is one game away from winning the match. 5-3, I believe, and he goes back to d4. And he goes for this, what, Collie? Is it called a Collie? Zucker-Torque Collie type setup, with this e3 while the bishop is still on c1. And I've noticed that all you need is luck plays this a lot as white, this d4 e3 without bringing the bishop out. So it's not a London, so it's like a Zucker-Torque Collie or something of that nature. It seems, I don't know, not as active to me with this bishop here on c1, but maybe eventually you have ideas of putting it on b2 and then dropping stuff on e5, getting control of this square. It's very solid, of course. White sacrificing on f2, or f7 rather, and he's got plenty of diagonal pieces to place. "51 spectators, look at that. That's got to be among the highest amount of spectators for a Crazyhouse match here on lichess. You'll get more if somebody's streaming, of course. Like I think Jan Lee gets up to the multiple hundreds of viewers from time to time. But just in terms of raw specs on the game site, 51 is quite a lot. And I suspect that penguingIM is pulling in quite a few from his own fan base, his own chess fan base. And that's why you have people asking about what the heck is this Crazyhouse nonsense in the chat. But hey, hopefully it'll help it gain some more exposure. So what's penguingIM thinking about here? How can he run his king to safety? I don't know that he wants to give up this knight, although he might be forced to. He's going to sack on h2. That's curious. Don't really see where that's leading, because if that's... Well, oh, okay. I was thinking knight at g4 is the idea, but no. If you take here, then knight here opens up the queen on this bishop. So what about takes? Here, queen takes. Takes. I guess that's possible. TwelveTeen's deciding whether to do that or just step to h1. He decides it's okay, so knight here will come, and I bet that's just going to be taken. Unless he drops a knight at g4, which Penguin might decide is the safer option. Common theme of this match has been penguingIM getting down on time quite a lot. TwelveTeen seems a little bit more in his element, a little bit more comfortable with the ebbs and flows. g5. I like that move. It's desperate. It is desperate, but it's good because that can't be taken. Opening up the rook. This pawn wasn't really doing too much on this square in terms of defending the king. And now white doesn't have much. He can, I mean, he can drop stuff on these light squares, but the king will sit nicely on one of the dark squares. He's going to run up to a light square. That's interesting. Okay. So white would love to find a way to bring the queen in, but the knight is guarding both of these access squares. Dropping the king back, prophylactically getting out of this check. Probably can just be recaptured. 12-teen's up a minute on the clock, and that's a desperate scenario for Penguin. Yeah, white's quite safe, I feel. And white has pretty natural moves to play here, whereas black does not. He's going to have a hard time defending with such time. This maneuver bishop e2 to c3 is possible. Okay, so this pawn does drop. Bishop d2 to e1 was a plan, looking at or defending this g3 square. Oh, look at this pawn chain deep into black's territory. That's nice. So penguingIM not going easy. Not going gentle into that good knight, right? Okay, another knight drop in the back rank. This square is guarded by this knight. So it's not mate, but it is a threat nonetheless. Queen dropping back just to make sure he's safe. And he's probably just going to try to do it on the clock. Well, man, I'm pretty amazed at Penguin's fighting spirit here. It's going to hang this knight fork. Yeah, that's all she wrote. See how he finishes this off. Nicely done. Using this pin, king must sidestep, queen on mate. It's a picturesque mate. So nicely done from 12-teen. That was an exciting match. It was back and forth. penguingIM came out of the gates, had a running speed and running clip, and managed to pull away with a few wins. I think 3-1 he started out at, and 12-teen just surged back into the lead and clinched things very convincingly there at the end. So 6-3 is the final score, I do believe. Yes, 6-3. So congratulations to 12-teen. He will be making it into the candidates round. I think that's how this thing is structured. You'll have to correct me if I'm mistaken. Fishy Vishy has very generously set this up. But if I'm not mistaken, after this round of 16, the final 8 who make it past this round make it into a candidates type format, which is Swiss as opposed to a knockout bracket, where everybody will play everybody, and it'll be a little bit more fair and a little bit more accurate in terms of giving us the real best Crazyhouse champion. So he's made it. 12-teen has made it into the round of, or not the round of 8, but the candidates round, which promises to give very, very exciting matches. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up this recording right here. Congratulations to 12-teen. Well fought from penguingIM. Another very exciting match. Very, very high quality match. These are some of the best Crazyhouse players in the world. And do tune back in for more Crazyhouse or World Crazyhouse Championship action here on lichess. I've got more round of 16 matches coming up. So thanks, guys.